So we're going to wake everybody up. So you guys think of Wendy, so many people know Wendy, you think of her as this great, business marketing guru, branding guru. But in fact, I have right here a secret leaked document.
Oh, God. Welcome to my...
WikiLeaks. And if you didn't catch this, Wendy actually starred in a WikiLeaks dump last week.
Last week.
But it was actually fascinating because you took time out from your work to join the Hillary Clinton campaign as a passion, and you ended up working on the branding, the logo. And in the course of communicating with the team about what a logo is, what it means, how important what it should do, it was an insight, frankly, into Wendy's genius. So you distilled down the need for this logo to show her as fresh yet familiar, tenacity, resilience, empathy, creativity, action-oriented, future-focused. And also earlier in the email, you talked about having something that makes it look like she reaches outwards to inspire upwards. Talk about how you came to that conclusion and how important that kind of logo is in branding.
Well, yeah, being part of a WikiLeaks, it wasn't like a normal brand marketer's life, right? So last week was a little interesting. Kind of called my boss. I'm like, so, when you hired me, you might not have expected this. So, but yeah, so I haven't really talked about this very much. I mean, part of the agreement is you not talk about it too much, but I'll talk about the branding
generally,
piece.
Yeah.
In general terms,
yes.
About the branding piece. Anytime a marketer works on something, what you want to do is create a body of work, a set of communications that represents the core and essence of whatever that product is. If it's a person, then it's got to represent the core and essence of who that person is and what they believe. And so, we take a very strategic approach. You look at the person, their platforms, what they stand for, and you distill the most compelling aspects in that you want to represent. I think in that email, which I did in the first sentence call a diatribe, so I own the length of it. It was a very long one, but I had a lot to say, which isn't unusual if you know me. So, what I was trying to distill there, these are common practices and principles that an Apple, that a Target would take into how they're branded. Well,
let me jump into that since you said Target and Apple, because you gave your colleagues a lesson in marketing through Target and Apple. You said the Target logo, it wasn't just made so that people would think automatically designed for all, fashionable yet affordable choices for my home and family, expect more, pay less. And you talked about Apple, the world's most valuable brand. With this rainbow Apple mark in 1976 simply stood for creativity, thinking differently. But no one at the time would look at that mark standalone and says it means Apple is the leader in human-centered designed electronic devices with a vision for the future. The point being in all of this is that the message and the image and everything has to be linked together.
It does, right? Especially in a socially connected world where we're listening. We're thinking about 400 hours of content uploaded every minute to YouTube, as you just heard Susan say. So much content out there. You've got to stay rigorous and on message and be deeply in your position and be very disciplined about doing that. And so, part of what we were trying to do with that design was set up something that could be filled with meaning, socially shared. The transparency of the logo, obviously very important, because then people can put in their images and it becomes ownable and allows you to represent that person through what you believe and show your advocacy for it. And so it was a very modern design, I think. Obviously,
is what you did, is the product that we see now your product, the Hillary?
I did. You see me like. I worked on that with Pentagram. So Michael Beirut, a leading global designer. Anyone in design will know Michael's name. And his team at Pentagram, and I worked on that together. And so, yeah, that was...
and so the arrow, everybody know this, right? The arrow and the blue.
All different colors, right? It was meant to be very, very, very dimensional. very flexible, very
And
adaptable.
it also implies movement. And in a candidate
Movement.
who's criticized for being, you know, old school and status quo.
Movement, future facing, you know, many people have read into the two lines and the line going between connecting, you know, being firm in your position and yet connecting those two
Interesting.
sides. I mean, there are a lot of ways that you can look into what that is. But obviously, I mean, part of the job when you have, you know, at DDB, we talk about, you know, building fame, feeling, and fluency in brands, right? Those are the things you have to do. Obviously, this is a very famous brand. So fame wasn't the challenge. What we had to do was create the feeling and the fluency of what, you know, Secretary Clinton was going to stand for as a president. And so those were the things you kind of leverage that fame, but then make sure that you have that fresh yet familiar feeling. So
you also described the Obama campaign, and of course we all remember that quite well, that look and that logo, the original one, 2008, correct, as a turning point for political branding and presidential campaigns. How
absolutely.
so?
No question. I mean,
Why?
I think if it, you know, what political campaigns generally do is use the tropes of, you know, well-trodden flag imagery, stars, red, white, and blue. I mean, we can, in our minds, and by the way, it becomes just a sea of sameness. And I think what the Obama administration and campaign did at the time was leverage and bring in some of what we would consider corporate branding ideals, right? Using imagery, making that imagery stand for something, having a symbol, a single symbol that stood for something rather than the word. And these were things that we wanted to borrow and bring over because they worked very, very effectively for that campaign. So I think, without question, it would be, you'd be hard-pressed to find a better example. And definitely that, I think, created an inflection point in political branding.
So, as if that wasn't enough, you went on to be CEO of DDB for the past 9 months, and you managed to become the lead agency for McDonald's $18 billion business in August. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Two questions. One is, you had, part of that was the structure of the deal and the way your services were going to be offered. And then if you could talk generally about where you think McDonald's needs to go with its imaging and branding.
Yeah, so this was, I mean, as a very young CEO then, I mean, this RFP came in April 25th, not that I'll ever forever, like, etched in my mind, April 25th. I'd started January 4th, and our single biggest client, we were the underdog. We had about 1/3 of the business, 2/3 was somewhere else. And so you're staring at an RFP that essentially is written and it's asked for the agency of the future, and you have exactly 60 days to prove that model. That's like one of those sort of flash in front of your eyes. You're like, wow, should I call Coke back and just see if this is all? No, I really didn't. Actually, it was.
You leaned in.
No, it's a dream, right? I mean, those are the moments why we take these jobs. Like, I don't think anyone wakes up every day to be average. Right? No one wakes up and is like, yeah, today I'm just going to shoot it down the middle, right? No one says that. And you wake up every day. If you're going to get out, like, I want to go for the mountain, and here's a brief, an RFP is like, write us the solution for agency of the future. And there's no better, I mean, honestly, that's like a dream wake up that day. But the constraints were challenging. I mean, 60 days. And again, being the underdog and that sort of thing. But you have to believe, right? And so we just went about it. We had 19 different Omnicom agencies, hundreds of people working on this. We were, 3,000 pages of content. We've done all the math now. 19 individual meetings during the course of that time. And at the core of it, a set and a group of people who believed in McDonald's. They believed in our solution. In short terms, what we created was a fully integrated agency. And a lot of this, someone was talking to me, Linda Boff and Lisa Sherman at lunch today were saying to me, this agency sounds like exactly what you were frustrated about as a client. And of course it is, right? This is like, you get the opportunity, like, and another thing that I hated, right? Yeah. And so, we kind of put in all the things that I felt that I had an immense amount of frustration as a client about. So fully integrated. I mean, we go from, TV to all social media to Ronald McDonald House Charities to all employee and communications to all digital menu boards. I mean, it is everything, all serviced by one agency, a fully integrated team with data and analytics and intelligence at the core of the agency. We literally situated them at the center of the agency, so everything operates around that intelligence. 3 modes of operation, so a fast twitch mode think about in terms of hours and days response. Of course, McDonald's has a very big online conversation. Then a macro mode, think about in terms of editorial days and weeks, and then a mega mode, weeks and months. But the notion of an agency not tilting toward the development of a TV spot the same way they tilt towards a tweet is important.
Yeah.
Right? You have to have different modes of operation now. It's a whole different world, and that's how you get fast, that's how you get efficient, and that's how you get great work.
And the image going forward, briefly? What
From
image
McDonald's?
are you crafting?
I mean,
from
McDonald's at its very best. I worked at McDonald's when I was 16 years old. It was my first job. And I was a shift manager. I was not just in and out in 6 weeks. I worked there for a year and a half. I love McDonald's. And I believe that McDonald's at its best it's one of the most democratic and inclusive brands, right? McDonald's is for everyone. And so when McDonald's is its best, it invites all of us to partake and participate and find our way. And so very much our plan and led under their strategy that they gave us is those everyday feel-good moments that are accessible for everyone. And that's when we all lean in and love McDonald's.
Which we've seen some of those feel-good moments. Questions?
Stunned silence. It's really how I like to leave a room.
Any questions about branding? Yes.
Nina McLemore, the question is, how do you dispel negative branding? Because when you talk to most people and say, why don't you like Hillary? The answer is, she's a liar. What does that mean, and how do you dispel that?
Well, these are without question what the campaign has been working on, the strategy they have. I think our job, when we were way back then initially thinking about it, was how to celebrate the positive aspects, which I think were perhaps not as well recognized and known. So I think part of it is making sure that you've got the full view of the brand. Again, I'm going to use brand because I'm a brand marketer. And that you lean in, you have to address and be authentic about the things that are not working. I mean, any brand will tell you that. You can't just sort of put your head down and go, well, that doesn't exist for that brand. If it exists, then it's part of the conversation. So you have to lean into them. You have to be authentic. You have to address them. You have to try to address the misconception. I think you have to be selective about the ways that you do it. But there's no, in a fully networked and transparent world, there is no way to hide from the truth, right? So I think the other aspect about the truth, though, is that each of us, if asked, have individual truths. So my truth might be different than your truth. And so as the brand, you've got to meet people where they are, meet those truths, and work them back to your truth. That's a truism for any brand or any person, is that you can't just stand fixed with your view of reality. You've got to meet people where they are and bring them back to you. So that's hard to do, but I think it's absolutely the mandate.
Since they're giving us the hook, can we do this really quick? Yes. Hi, Alex. There's very quick.
Oh, Alex Keith from Procter & Gamble. Now that you're on the agency side, what would you go back and tell your old team about how to be a better client?
Wow, it's so funny you say that.
And you have 40 seconds.
40 seconds. Well, I mean, honestly, I've said like 100 times, like I've called back to Coke and gone, you guys, we were not that bad, right? I mean, so I mean, the best thing that you can do is collaborate, right? I mean, and it's a little bit of a worn theme, but no one has a corner on the smarts. I'm absolutely convinced. My first job, I was a receptionist in an agency when I came out of school, and I have the luxury now of looking at an agency and saying, I've been the receptionist and now I'm the CEO, but I don't think that I had any less ideas and energy to contribute when I was a receptionist than when I was the CEO. And so I think if we think about collaboration, think we're better together and that no one has a corner on the smarts, that can be unleashing. And if you as a client can celebrate that with your agencies, they will love that.
Wendy Clark, thank you so much.
Thank you.